Hey y'all, welcome in or welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new video. I am going on a no buy in August and this video is a call to action to you to join me. So I'll be sharing a little bit about why I'm going on a no buy in August. We'll also talk about the rules and kind of the framework of the mini project. And then we'll also talk about why you might want to consider going on one or things to consider if you might be interested. So let's get started with the basics. What is a no buy? A no buy is a very flexible project and it is a period in time in which you don't buy things. How it applies, when it applies, what it applies to is very personal. So it could be 1 month, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. A year is a very popular framework and it can apply to everything or very small segments of your life. Some people do a makeup no buy or a book no buy. Some people decide to not buy anything except for necessities or replacements in a year or, within a period of time if it's not a year. So, why am I going on a no buy in August? The reason for me is really simple. It's a reminder that not buying things is not a punishment. And it's a reminder as well that there is so much life out there. There is so much pleasure and joy and experience and fun beyond stuff. I can't emphasize that enough. I talk about overconsumption all the time on this channel, and I know that to a degree, and I practice it in my life, but I really like a concrete framework, a period of time where that is just solidly the point. That's solidly the focus. Life is beautiful and amazing. Like there's so much goodness in it, not just in the things I already have, but the elements of life that don't revolve around things. And we really don't need more stuff to be happy. New things, more things are not the things that make us happy. And living that is kind of the point here. A reminder of that, a month-long reminder, essentially. There is so much value in what we already have, and no buys can be a really great opportunity to like check in with our stuff, get creative with it, get in touch with it, have our experience gratitude and appreciation for the things we already have. So that is the more important factor, like the top factor. The second component is using it as like a check-in for the finances and budgeting. I like them as a checkpoint or a way to check in with how I'm doing. I mean, I'm talking about me here, and we'll, I guess, perhaps talk more about this later. But like a check in can be like reviewing the budget and your budgeting categories, or how much you've saved, but also just like a check in on your spending habits themselves. Where are you spending money? How are you spending money? Are you really happy with how that's going? And then as well, where is your attention going? Or I guess in this case, my attention. Where is it going? So this for me is an opportunity or like a platform, so this is really like a framework or just, carving out a moment to think about these things. It's an opportunity to slow down and notice what's going on around me, notice my own behavior. It may be that nothing's out of whack. It may be that small changes need to be made or large changes need to be made. And this is my opportunity to notice and then start making those changes. I am practiced at the no buy. And I say that to mean that checking in on the money or the habits is not a nerve-wracking thing anymore, not because I know I'm perfect or I know that everything is going according to plan. It's because this is really not meant to be a test or like a pop quiz that you didn't study for. Because some of the like fear or like, I don't know, if you go to the dentist, I don't like going to the dentist usually because I know I'm not doing all the right things and it feels like a test that you're like not prepared for, that kind of thing. You go in and like you're going to be judged. And I think that's the fear of why so many of us don't check in on our habits or like our finances or things like that is because we fear the judgment or we fear that things aren't going as we want. But in my case, I have worked hard to distance myself from my own judgment in respect to these things. So I am in a non-judgmental way, earnestly and honestly, like what what's going on? If it's good, fine. If it's bad, fine. If it's somewhere in the middle, fine. I'm not expecting an end result. Like whatever it is, I'm happy to learn about it, you know? Knowing that you are approaching it in a way of not judgment or less judgment makes being honest with myself anyway easier. One of the reasons why I'm sharing this video and kind of talking about it is because there are so many use cases for no buys, and one of the most popular ones is to kind of kickstart or be a framework or a project to help somebody who is struggling with their spending or their shopping habits. This is no buys can be a really great tool for that for some people, but that's not their only tool. And so we see a lot of content like that out there. Great content. My channel started off that way as well. There's a time and a place for that. There's certain people that that applies to, but I also want to show other use cases for a no buy. It doesn't have to be something that is only to be used in an extreme circumstance or as a tool of last resort. There can be other tools, other ways that they can benefit us. So let's now talk about why you might want to consider a no buy. And before we talk about that, I would be remiss if I didn't say no buys are not for everybody at every point in life. There are so many people who no buys are not going to be beneficial for, even a short-term project. If you're going through an acute period of stress or grief, anxiety, your mental health's not great. There's just a lot of busyness around you as well. May not be the time. You know yourself best, you know your situation best. Great. And opting out in some cases is really the right choice. But there's also some folks where no buys are too restrictive and they would really benefit from more of a low and slow method. This is truly the case. And one of the examples I kind of talk about a lot are how no buys can be like a crash diet or like quitting smoking. A lot of people don't do well in those situations. This is not a dig. This is not a judgment. There are just different things that work for different people. Whether that's a year-long no buy or a month-long no buy, they're not appropriate for everybody and they're not the best course of action. I'm a very firm believer in that. No buys can be truly detrimental for some folks and where they're at in life. So if it's not for you, great. So if you're somebody who is thinking, you know what, maybe a month-long project might be something good, or you're kind of curious about it, the rest of the video perhaps is for you. And I don't want this video or this segment to induce guilt or make anybody or encourage the feeling that you should or must go on them. So why might you consider a no buy? What might they be good at doing or helping? One of the biggest or perhaps most obvious reasons are financial, to save more money or to redirect finances to a specific place. And this could be anything from saving up or adding more money to a trip fund, or maybe you are going on a trip or you want to do back to school shopping and you want to have a little bit more money for that. You want to have more spending money on your vacation. But it can also be for other things like you want to make an extra mortgage payment, or you're saving up to buy a house or to move to a new home and you want to put a little bit more money in that fund. They can also be great for checking in on your spending habits for sure, checking in on your budget, but also checking in on the emotional side of things. Nobuys can help bring emotional spending patterns to light. They can also help us consider what draws us to buy things. What might be propelling me to shop? What might be propelling my interests? And we can have this time and space to check in, not just on like the why and where and how we're spending money, but the habits that might prop up those why and how. Another great reason is to reconnect with the stuff that we already have. There are so many like sub points to this. I think it can help us reconnect with a sense of wonder. Perhaps for you, wonder is an appropriate word, but we might also think about like appreciation or gratitude when we are constantly shopping, or even if we're not actually buying things, if we're constantly looking out for new things, this can dull our appreciation and excitement for the stuff that we already have. And so a no buy, while focusing on the stuff you already have, can reawaken a sense of joy or gratitude or appreciation. I am like such, this is a personal reason of mine that I love the no buy, is just like tapping back into gratitude and appreciation and like really noticing the great stuff you already have. And sometimes we are so caught up in shopping, we are just like, we're truly not seeing our stuff and our stuff becomes white noise. When we step away from that, or we say, you know what, over the next 30 days, I really want to focus on this, you stop seeing your stuff as white noise, or you can't anyway. And you can start like really seeing the greatness around you. I think as well, no bias can help us become more creative. And one of the reasons why people go to shopping is to experience that sense of novelty and pleasure. And when we're not doing that, we can switch things up and we can focus on other ways to get novelty and pleasure, creativity being one of them. People can rediscover old favorites or old hobbies, or just like use things in new ways, find new uses for things. I hear this time and time again when people go on no buys. And, I've been in this community talking to people about no buys for about 5 years now. I've been hearing it for all 5 years. No buys can also be a great opportunity to focus on a specific project or something that's important to you. I usually do that, and I kind of feel like a no buy can be a mindfulness tool to like create, like to physically carve out time and space and attention for something that matters to me. Last August, I did a no buy as well. And I used this as a way to spend more time offline, to really be mindful of how much time and attention I was giving to overconsumption content. I really kind of felt like I was constantly immersed in that content, editing videos or watching TikToks. I just kind of felt like I should be doing more, or I wasn't drawing these lines, and so I kind of felt like I was always immersed in it, and it can be really draining to just be seeing this thing that is, in some cases, like not some cases, it can be deeply emotional to be constantly in front of those things, to be constantly feeling frustration and anger, even some cases like despair, or like uh, it can just weigh on me. So distancing myself from that gave me an opportunity to check in with my offline hobbies. I actually freed up time because I created a hard deadline for work. After this time, you're done. And so it'll be like 5, 6 o'clock. Rest of the evening is mine, you know? And if I want to be offline more, I can't go and check in on TikToks. I was encouraging myself to like read and run and spend time with my partner and check in with other hobbies. I was doing some coloring and stuff. It was good fun. It can also be a time to check in with your values or your goals. It can give you a specific, as I was saying, like carving out time to consider these things and potentially act on them as well. We also can focus on the joy outside of shopping and the joy outside of consumption. So we get to redefine what enjoyment and pleasure look like and get a month doing that. When shopping is your default hobby or reward, it can be difficult to find alternatives or things outside of that, or fun outside of that. A no buy can push us to focus on this thing, to find low cost or no cost alternatives, or to try out things. Maybe you're somebody who's like, you know what, I really wanted to disconnect celebration from shopping. Maybe this is your month to try out different strategies. Okay, how can I show excitement, or how can I celebrate a little win without it turning into a little treat moment or a buy something moment, and work on something like that? We can also, as I was saying, focus on the joy or pleasure outside of consumption. And so connecting with things or focusing on things that do that. This could be a pleasure month. So, okay, instead of going to shopping for dopamine or pleasure, what are some alternatives? And you could just make this month about doing that. It can promote slower, more thoughtful living. Just saying that I'm doing a no buy this month can spark ideas or interest, or kind of tapping into maybe values or other things you care about, as I've already mentioned. One of them might be slower or simpler living or just living life more intentionally, whatever that means for you. It can help us reset our relationship with consumer culture, by tapping out for a little while. And sometimes we do act on instinct or impulse habits, and we don't fully notice what we're doing. When we say, I'm not going to be shopping, that check in, as I've already mentioned, can help us reset and reestablish the relationship that we want to have. And sometimes, because we're acting on impulse, that can contradict what we do want. We want to be conscious or intentional. We get this moment to realign this thing. I have so many things I could say. The last one would be to sit with discomfort. This might not be sexy or fun. But one of the reasons why people go to shopping is to deal with like their discomfort and their difficult emotions, stress and anxiety, and bad days and overall difficult or negative emotions. We need to get good. Like if that's you, then you're somebody who would probably need to get good at experiencing or sitting with your emotions instead of going to shopping to cope or deal with them. We need opportunity to feel our feelings and not necessarily like anger or grief, but it could also be things like boredom or just being restless or envy or comparison. Okay, what happens when you compare your life to somebody else and your immediate reaction is click, 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 buy something? What do you do when you're not clicking and buying something? Maybe you decide on other strategies that you want to use. So if I'm feeling bored, I'm going to try this. If I'm feeling stressed, I'm going to try this. And you can have a bit of a short-term window to brainstorm and work through some other strategies and just practicing sitting with your emotions, your hard feelings, experiencing them without shopping, and finding ways to experience them as well. This is a caveat that you may be able to and desire to do this alone, but this also may be something best done with a professional. Let's now talk about my rules for this project. We're going to call this a replacements only, generally speaking, no buy. So this is going to apply to most categories. Clothing and home goods and beauty products, books, whatever it is, generally speaking, it's going to apply to that. There are a few notable exceptions, as we'll talk about in just a minute. The first being takeout. I feel like my partner and I have a great relationship with that. I'm happy with how much we eat out, feel comfortable with that. I want to continue to do that, or I want to maintain that, I should say. When it comes to consumables like beauty products or skincare or hair care or things like that, it's going to be replacements only. I don't actually foresee needing or desiring to replace anything other than eyebrow gel. I am running low. That would be the major maybe, but I am going to try my best to not do it for August. I'm going to remove the stopper of my eyebrow product, and that usually buys me some time. So I think we'll be good. The other maybe in this is going to be sunscreen. I just placed an order a few days ago for some new sunscreen because I am probably like maybe 2 weeks away from finishing my current one and I don't have anything else. And I purchase Asian beauty sunscreens. Well, okay, my favorite is the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen. So I placed an order and sometimes they can take a while to get here. Like sometimes it can take 10 to 14 days. And I'm cutting it close a little bit. I know that. But last time I placed an order, it got to me in 5 days. So you never really know. But what I realized, I got the shipping notification this morning. They're shipping with Canada Post. I did not know before I purchased it. And a few things. Number one, Canada Post is in the middle of a strike. I support the union 100%. I'm just saying that I would not have ordered this had I known that. I would have purchased from another retailer. So now I am really uncertain if this is going to get to me in a timely manner. And I may have to purchase something else if I don't have that and mine runs out. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's just sunscreen. I'm just thinking, or I'm just saying on like the personal front, if I don't have something in my hands, I have no other sunscreen and I will have to make a purchase. So we will see about that. Oh, and I guess to further maybe complicate things, my address has never received mail before, and I currently don't have access to our mailbox. I've done all the paperwork and sent out for the key, but we need to get it. So even if they shipped it to me, and we got it, I don't have access to it either. The jury's out on what's gonna happen um, in August, or if I'm gonna purchase sunscreen or something from the drugstore. Like we'll see, big, we'll see. I do have the wardrobe. I've been calling it a challenge, but it's not really a challenge. It's a budget. I have that going on. The budget still stands, but we're just gonna call it not buying any clothes in August. That really fits in with the overall like goal of this project, as I talked about at the beginning. So no clothes in August. There's one more exemption which we'll talk about, and we're gonna end on that because there I want to have like a conversation about like summer trips and things like that. So we'll conclude on that. But as for like specific categories, that's what I have. And what I find overall helpful for me personally is using the question, does this fit the spirit of the project when something arises? Now, I don't like to think too hard about my rules or come up with all of the exemptions or exceptions because or like try to think of all of the unforeseen things because number one, you don't know what you don't know. Shit happens. Like stuff happens, life happens. You truly can't foresee anything and I don't or you can't foresee everything and I don't find all that helpful for me to start thinking about all the things that could or might happen. I've thought about the plausible things that may happen or accounted for like major areas that trip me up. Like one of my favorite things to shop for are clothes. I can admit that. I still enjoy looking and shopping for clothes. So being cautious and knowing this about myself, I think it's appropriate to frame that as a category I'm not going to buy. But other things, I don't find it useful for because when I start thinking about all the things I'm not going to buy and I start thinking about you can't buy this, you can't buy this, you can't buy this, I do feel restricted. If I just went about August not saying anything, I wouldn't feel that way. And I might buy the same or less had I not said anything. So I don't find it helpful to consider everything or every category. I know, generally speaking, I want to buy as little as possible. And I start imagining, or in the past anyway, I've imagined all these scenarios like, what if I have a clothing emergency? There are very truly, truly, there have been so few real clothing emergencies in my life. Not really helpful to think about. I don't normally buy books or plants or I don't know, like wall decor. It's not a helpful thing for me to think about. Like, well, what if? So when I was thinking in the spirit of the project, something else came to me, and that is also beauty treatments. I like to get my hair done about once a year. And I initially was going to get it done in July. And I said, you know what? July's been kind of busy. I'll do it in August. But when I said, hey, does this fit the spirit of the project? My answer was no. Do I have money for this? Yes. But as I was saying at the beginning, one of the messages that I want to reinforce is that I don't need stuff to be happy, but I also kind of felt like the spirit of the project was also things like luxuries. Luxuries are luxuries. I don't need them to be happy, and I am pleased to have the reminder that this is a luxury. Life will go on. I will be fine without it or to delay it. And I appreciate having that reminder and that message. And I feel like, yeah, getting your hair done is a luxury. Here's your reminder that it's a luxury, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? I really believe in that message that nice to have things are nice to have, and life is great and will still be great with or without that thing. The biggest exemption for me is a trip. My partner and I are going on a trip to visit family about mid month in August. This is a nice to have kind of thing. And yes, I mentioned earlier that I want to remind myself that, life is still great without the nice to haves. My but here is that my partner and I have been putting this off for literally 2 years. And we almost went two other times this year so far, but because of like moving and such, we pushed them back and pushed them back. And then finally, our family was like, yeah, so you're going to come in August. That was kind of the conversation. We're like, it's about time. Like, we're going to go. So I had been setting aside money for this since November of last year. So everything is already paid for, and there's already a sinking fund specifically set aside for this. Maybe sinking fund isn't the correct term here. We'll just say a fund for this that was specifically for this trip. A lot of people do travel in the summer, and I kind of feel like that can be a hesitation, right? Like, oh, I want to go on, or I'm going on a trip in like whenever you see this video, maybe August or September, or maybe you've already been in June or July. And so you say, well, I'm already doing this thing that's already expensive. Like, why bother? I'm going to put a little but in there. Just because I'm traveling or you're traveling doesn't mean that a no buy has to get thrown out the window. My partner and I don't shop on trips. The last few we've been on, or yeah, all of them I can think about, the ones I've taken independently and the ones we've taken together, we don't bring home stuff and we don't go to that city or that town or that country to go shopping. Generally, like that's not the case. We go to see the sights, we go to eat the food, we go to see the people. I mean, in this case, we're seeing family. So yes, while we're there, we will have a bigger food budget because we love to eat. That's our thing. We love to try new foods and new places. And, we can and do, and you can and do set a travel budget or a food budget for while you're traveling. I think this is some cases where maybe this is technically a low buy. And maybe this is, or just a budget as you want to view it. And I think this is sometimes where no buys can be misunderstood, where people feel like you can't spend a cent. You can't do anything if you're on a no buy. But no buys, as I have maintained, are meant to be customized to the person, to you specifically, to your life and what's happening. And if you are going on a vacation or a trip, whether that's for a weekend or whether that's for a week, ultimately, we're going to be going for, I think, 8 days. 8 days is still not the majority of the month. And I can be on a bona fide no buy for the majority of the month and then a modified one for 8 days. No buys for me are ultimately mindfulness tools or consciousness tools to check in on and look at, experiment, have a moment for mindful or conscious spending. And so I can ask in this context, am I doing this thing mindfully or intentionally? And when I think about, does this fit the spirit of the project? Guess what? Trip's happening whether or not I'm on a no buy. You know what I mean? Like, tickets are already booked. No buys as well are about cutting out the noise, not just the intentionality, but cutting out all of the noise and being able to recognize what's noise, what's not, or what's a luxury, what's a nice to have, and what's not. What do I actually need to live? What's gonna make me happy in life? To make space, to reflect and make choices deliberately. A trip like this, in my opinion, is not counter to that. It's a test of that. The goal in life is not to spend nothing ever, but to stay grounded in your values or your beliefs when you do. So, are you going to approach the trip with a spendy mindset, use it an excuse to shop or buy things, or even like maybe in our case with our food budget, instead of setting what might be a reasonable daily budget, double it or triple it because you can. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So if this negates the project for you, that's fine, but it also doesn't have to. It doesn't thinking about it like that doesn't make me go, ugh, the trip is not going to be fun anymore or anything like that. That's just my take. So that's everything for me today. I hope you enjoyed this one. I would love to know if you're going to join me for No Buy August. And if a no buy is not right for you, maybe a budgeting challenge or a low buy. I would love to hear from you. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon for a new video.